Pete Hegseth's Iowa visit has sparked speculation that the U.S. War Secretary may be laying the groundwork for a future presidential bid, a move that could irritate Donald Trump. Hegseth's latest political push is not about Iran or Pentagon policy. Instead, it centers on campaigning for Republican candidates in key early voting states, a traditional route for politicians testing national ambitions. Political analysts are asking whether Hegseth is eyeing Trump's seat after sources close to him said he wants to become president, though the defense secretary has made no formal announcement. By campaigning in Iowa for Representative Zach Nunn, Hegseth has entered a state long associated with presidential primaries, intensifying questions over whether the White House is his next political target. Sources close to Pete Hegseth say the U.S. War Secretary may have presidential ambitions, although he has not publicly announced a plan to run for the White House. Hegseth's August 17th trip to Iowa has fueled fresh speculation about a possible 2028 bid, as the state has long been a major testing ground for Republican presidential hopefuls. Hegseth traveled to Iowa to campaign for Republican Representative Zach Nunn, delivering a high-profile political speech at the Iowa State Fair in what the Pentagon described as a personal capacity visit. The defense secretary also campaigned for Republican Senator Darlene Graham in South Carolina the previous week, another early voting state that is central to Republican presidential politics. Any presidential run by Hegseth would face significant hurdles, including questions over his experience, his polarizing public profile, and the challenge of building a national Republican campaign. Hegseth shared sensitive strike details in a group chat with 19 officials on Signal. He also faced backlash over repeated purges of top military officers. The War Secretary fired DEI hires as part of his Pentagon shake-up. He floated free hormone therapy for service members with low testosterone. Hegseth also faced criticism for restricting mainstream defense reporters at the Pentagon. His alleged kill-them-all orders over Caribbean strikes drew legal scrutiny. Additionally, Iran war remains deeply unpopular, with just 28% approving in a CNN poll. The USS Abraham Lincoln has remained deployed for over 260, raising alarm over crew conditions. Sailors' families reported mold, broken toilets, contaminated water and food shortages. However, Hegseth dismissed concerns over the crew, saying reports completely misrepresented conditions. Hegseth has also faced past allegations involving assault, sexism and connections to far-right extremist ideology, allegations that could become major issues in a presidential primary race. A potential 2028 Republican primary could place Hegseth in direct competition with Vice President J.D. Vance, who is widely viewed as a leading contender to succeed Trump. Vance has the backing of some of MAGA's most wealthy and influential donors, potentially giving him an important advantage in fundraising and campaign organization. Reports of Hegseth's presidential ambitions may not sit well with Trump, who has repeatedly avoided giving a clear answer about who should succeed him as the Republican Party's next leader. Trump has spent much of the year dismissing questions about a successor, while encouraging speculation around several possible Republican heirs. Analysts say Trump has at times positioned Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as competing contenders for his eventual endorsement in a post-Trump Republican race. Trump has also publicly toyed with the idea of seeking a third presidential term, despite the U.S. Constitution's two-term limit. USS Abraham Lincoln's 250-day deployment now appears to be colliding with America's Iran blockade, as reports of stretched supplies, limited port calls, and crew welfare concerns draw congressional scrutiny. On August 13th, Pete Hegseth rejected reports of poor conditions aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, insisting the carrier's sailors are receiving all the support the Pentagon can provide. Hegseth also said the U.S. Navy can maintain its blockade of Iranian ports indefinitely, arguing that America can preserve the pressure campaign by rotating ships in and out of the region. Hegseth said, and I quote, "We make sure every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas in those austere conditions with fewer port calls, it's incredible. Indefinitely, the United States Navy can maintain a blockade like that because we'll rotate ships in and out, as we have, and will continue to." Unquote. Notably, the USS Lincoln concern surfaced as the United States is already facing pressure on its wider weapons stockpile after months of operations against Iran. However, U.S. officials, including Hegseth, have dismissed reports of depleted supplies, maintaining that American forces still have the resources needed to sustain the blockade. Interestingly, Washington is preparing to send the USS George Washington to the Middle East, according to the Wall Street Journal. The George Washington is set to replace USS Abraham Lincoln in what officials describe as a previously scheduled rotation, rather than an emergency withdrawal over the reported crew conditions. A U.S. official said the carrier rotation had been planned before concerns over Lincoln's conditions emerged, stressing that the relief operation was already part of normal fleet planning. The change came as Lincoln's prolonged deployment put crew strain under the spotlight, after lawmakers and military families raised concerns over shortages, sanitation, mental health, and limited access to port. Another American warship is facing trouble at sea, marking a fresh setback for U.S. troops and raising concerns over deployment conditions. The amphibious assault ship USS Boxer is reportedly running short of basic supplies, echoing earlier concerns aboard the Abraham Lincoln. Anonymous family members of the Boxer crew made the allegations in a report published by Midas News, raising fresh concerns over conditions. Female crew members aboard the warship have reportedly run out of feminine hygiene products during the extended deployment. Crew members have allegedly urged their next of kin to send additional hygiene supplies from home to cover the shortages. One family member claimed sailors were desperately asking for extra pads and tampons so essential supplies could be shared. However, the families reportedly said none of the packages they sent were ever delivered to the sailors on board. The American warship left San Diego in March and reportedly reached the Middle East by late June after its long deployment. The Wasp-class amphibious assault ship has reportedly received no port call since reaching the region, limiting opportunities for resupply. The extended deployment has allegedly complicated normal resupply operations, while also affecting crew rest and rotation schedules. The Boxer is an aging warship that is already scheduled for retirement from the U.S. Navy, adding to questions over its prolonged deployment.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HD app. Download now.